Hey guys, welcome back to another Trick Tip Tuesday. And last week we talked about linear stretching dies on the planishing hammer and also showed you how to do a reverse curve on the linear stretch dies in the planishing hammer. So thought maybe it'd be a good idea to show you guys reverse curve on an English wheel. The reverse curve, this is the one we did on the planishing hammer here. So you have the reverse curve where it curves this direction, but it curves this direction. So it's curving in opposite directions, and we showed you how to do that again on the planishing hammer last week. So wanted to give you guys a look about how to achieve this on the English wheel. So essentially it's the same, if you watched last week's trick tip, it's the same principle of stretching the edge and more towards the very edge of the panel and less towards the middle of the panel. And because that's what that does, the more you stretch towards this edge, the material has to go somewhere. So on this edge, you'll start to find that the material tries to curl up in this direction, or depending on how you're doing it, it might try to curl down, but you can learn to control that, which direction it goes based on how you're working it. But you'll find that as it starts to stretch, the distance from end to end on the panel has to, as the material stretches, that distance technically gets longer. So, if in the middle of your panel, it's still the same width as what you cut, but as it moves towards the outer edge, it actually gets longer. So in order to, naturally that puts load in the panel. So the material where it gets longer there has to go somewhere. So you make that material curve up, and if you make it curve in a direction where it's curving up this way, it's going to naturally try to put a bend in it, bow in the panel this way, but it will also try to lift the material up this way, which then in turn is going to start creating that reverse curve shape this way, but the curve in the opposite direction. So how do you achieve that on the English wheel? For stretching an edge, it all depends on, I guess, obviously how much reverse curve you're trying to go for. I might show you a little bit on some steel here. But I'm going to start with this thin aluminum just to make the process go a little faster. So I like to choose a little bit more of a flatter die, not the completely flat die, but the next one down. So this is the 24-inch radius lower anvil for the English wheel. So we'll put that in there, and we're going to raise that up. We'll see what our gaps. It's a little tight. But it'll work well on this thin aluminum. So as you press the material into the machine and you're rolling it through there, it's naturally stretching the metal. So as you roll this through, the contact area on this lower die has a flat spot on these 3-inch anvils. So you get the flat spot in there that's going to create a wider path of where you're stretching on your material. So if you run that through there, you can already kind of see, if you look down the edge of the panel this way, the material is already starting to go somewhere. There's already a slight bow in it this way, whereas it's nice and flat on the other side. And that's because we're just running it through that one time, stretched the edge of this panel, so the material is trying to go somewhere. So in order to start creating that shape, sometimes what I like to do on a reverse curve is actually pull the material towards myself, because as I am running it in there, make sure I get it lined up here. As I'm pulling the material in, we'll go ahead and put it in this way. So as I'm pulling the material towards myself, I actually put a little bit of down pressure on the aluminum or whatever material I'm working on, in order to start helping the material want to bend around the bottom die just a little bit, just to create that curve I want in this direction. So as I'm pulling it through, kind of pull down, make sure I'm steering right, and there's that little bit of bow we're talking about this way. So that's getting the material to start going up this way, and naturally it's going to be starting to create this curve. So again, less stretch in the middle of the panel in this way, and the closer you get to the edge of the panel, the more stretch you need in order to create a nice consistent flowing reverse curve. So I'm going to go ahead and move this panel a little bit further in. I'm gonna go in, I'm just gonna steer this over and kind of keep wheeling. So steer it over, move it in, get towards the middle, not too much, and then I'll work my way back out towards the edge of the panel. And then I'll make sure I run that outside edge over just a few more times to make sure I'm really getting that stretch on the outer edge of the material. Now there's a lot of load in this panel now. It's kind of wanting to spring and do some weird things because all of this material on the edge and a little bit further in is now stretched, so it has to go somewhere. So it's trying to find its happy home because I've only done the one side. So what'll help this side hold its shape is to start working the other side, because then it will naturally want to curve the whole panel in this direction, and then it'll keep this sweeping up motion on both ends. So I'm gonna go ahead and slide this in here. Actually, we'll just go through the front side first. We'll run it through. Now I want to come back, a little bit of down pressure to kind of create that bow, and I'm just going to work it in towards the middle a little bit, not all the way in the middle, and I'll work it back out, keeping that little bit of down pressure as I pull the material back through. And then I'm going to stretch that edge a few extra times out on that outer edge. So because I'm using a pretty flat die on this in this way, just to kind of get all this started, there's not a whole lot of compound curve or anything going on, because obviously the upper anvil's flat in this way, and the lower anvil has about an inch wide flat spot on it to start creating that stretch. Now, at this point, what I like to do on the English wheel is when I'm going for the reverse curve is actually to flip the panel over, and I'll explain why here in a second, but I'm going to go to the next anvil in size that has more radius in it. So this is the 12-inch radius lower die, so it's got a little more curve in it side to side this way. So I like to flip this panel over, and now, before I was pulling the panel down, now I'm going to be pulling the panel up, and as I'm stretching with the panel upside down, it's going to be naturally trying to, because of the radius of the lower anvil, it's going to be trying to curve the material in this direction. But as I'm stretching it and pulling up on it, it's going to continue to shape it this way. And again, same principle, more stretch on the outside edge, less in the middle. So I'm going to roll this through, kind of put that up pressure on it. Same thing coming back through. And just keep on, wheel a little bit more towards the inner edge, not all the way to the middle. I'm going to roll it back out. Stretch a few more times right on that outside edge, just to make sure I'm getting that curve that I want. And you can see it's bowing that way. And now I'm going to flip it over and do the same here. Roll it towards the middle, but not all the way. And then roll it back towards the outer edge. And just do a couple extra passes on that outer edge to make sure I'm really stretching that outer edge to create this reverse curve. So now this is, you can see, taking the curve this way, but it's putting and keeping that curve in this way. Now, this is pretty thin aluminum, so even when it's flat, there's not a whole lot of structure to the piece. So as you're wheeling, it's going to, something this thin and this soft, it's going to want to just kind of go wherever it wants. So it's not holding, let's say, the best shape. That would still need more work at this point. But you can see how it's starting to get that reverse curve in there. So I'm going to go ahead and swap out one more anvil size down. and keep wheeling here. So there's a little more curve. It's, you know, still got the curve this way. You know, the panel kind of gets a little twist in it, like I said, because it's so thin and just kind of wanting to go everywhere. There's not a whole lot of structure to it, but we're definitely getting that curve in it this way, and it's getting the sweep in it this direction. So you can see, hopefully with these little techniques of how you can start to achieve reverse curves on an English wheel. You know, the biggest thing, especially with something like this, is just practice. So grab some scrap, grab a small piece, don't run your thumbs over, and, you know, try to get that reverse curve in your part. So hopefully this trick tip will help you on your English wheel with some reverse curve panels and parts that you're trying to make. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.